Hello, my name is Jameer Rice, and welcome to another episode of Focus on Tomorrow. Focus on Tomorrow is a nonprofit organization located in Chicago, Illinois. You can find us on the web at www.focusontomorrow.org, or you can email us at info@focusontomorrow.org. If you have any questions or comments, you can call in now at 312-738-1060. Today, I am here with Cook County Children Justice for Children and with CEO Julia Stratton. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Jamil.
That is good. That is good. So I'm gonna have a couple of questions for you. Are you ready to answer them?
I am.
That's good. So, what is the mission for Cook County Justice for Children?
Cook County Justice for Children is a nonprofit organization that focuses on promoting transparency and accountability of the Cook County Juvenile Court. So ultimately, we want to work with the juvenile court system to make sure that as they are considering the needs of young people that are going through the court system, that their needs are being met, that they are cared for, and that they have the best possible outcomes.
That's great. So, what inspires you to join this organization?
Well, I've been the executive director of Cook County Justice for Children since November of 2014. I'm an attorney, and when I first started practicing law almost 20 years ago, I started practicing within the juvenile court. Even outside of my work, I've always been interested in issues relating to children, justice for children, making sure that children who often deal with some really difficult circumstances, that they have the best opportunities possible. So both with my professional life and my personal life, it's something that I've always been interested in. Before joining Cook County Justice for Children, I worked with Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle as the executive director of the Cook County Justice Advisory Council. And in that role, I was also working on criminal and juvenile justice issues. And really what we were trying to do is to look at policies to help reduce the number of young people that ended up being detained in the Cook County Juvenile Temporary Detention Center.
This kind of reminds me of my aunt. She's a paralegal, and she just does a lot of work in court systems, helping young people like get their life back on track, like helping them with court dates and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So she tells me stories every day about like what she has to go through, but it sounds pretty fun. So did you know that when you was young that you wanted to work with children in the justice system or be a lawyer?
Well, not really. When I was younger and when I went to college, I studied broadcast journalism. So I was interested in pretty much doing what you do, which is being on camera, hosting a television show. I was a news producer, and I also was a news anchor while I was at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. After I graduated from undergraduate school, I became a video producer for the city of Chicago. And it turns out that my boss at the city's Office of Cable Communications was also a lawyer. So I don't think I had ever put communications and law together, but I thought to myself, well, I spend a lot of my time talking, so I thought it might be a nice transition into law. So that's what I did. I went to law school.
That's great, because like my dream is to become a world-renowned journalist as far as doing my broadcast. And so like what you did before leading to a lawyer is kind of inspiration to me. So thank you.
Good.
Anyway, so back to the mission. What has led to the need for transparency of the juvenile court and juvenile temporary detention center?
Well, I think there's always a need for transparency for any of the government agencies or systems that exist, that all of us who pay taxes in a particular local or statewide or federal system, when we pay taxes, we as citizens have the right to know what's happening with these governmental agencies. So, for example, when we look at the court system, I think that there are a lot of people who kind of see it as this sort of mysterious system that's hard to penetrate. It's hard to know what's happening behind closed doors. But a lot of people don't realize that you have a right as a citizen, as a tax-paying citizen, a resident of this county, to be able to go into the court building to see what's happening with the money that's being put into those public systems, and to make sure that the system is operating in the way that it should operate. So when we think about a court system, for example, like you said that your aunt works with, we should be able to know, are the decisions that are being made fair? Is justice being upheld? Do we know, are people working effectively? Those are all things that we should be paying attention to. Now, at the Cook County Juvenile Court system, you can't always go into the courtrooms to observe like you might be able to do in an adult system. And part of the reason is because there are special laws about confidentiality for young people. So you can't just walk in, because we want to make sure that we're protecting children who might be in a court case. But we certainly should be paying attention to that, and that's what Cook County Justice for Children attempts to do.
I have a question. Like, do you believe in second chances when it comes to like children? Like, say for example, if a child is like wrongfully arrested, cause like say he went into a store with his best friend, like his best friends like put like a candy bar or like like some money or anything in the store and it's bad, and he gets blamed for it. Do you believe in second chances even though like he's being tried as an adult in the court system?
Well, I can say a couple of things. So first of all, there are certain cases where young people would be charged as an adult, and they're usually much more serious kinds of cases. The other thing I'll say is, because I'm a lawyer, I would not try to make any sort of judgment about a particular case without knowing all of the facts. Having said that, of course I believe in second chances for young people. There is a lot of research that talks about brain development, adolescent brain development, and how a young person's brain is not fully developed until about 24 or 25 years of age. And what that means is that while a young person is developing, they are a lot more impulsive, they are a lot more susceptible to kind of being swayed by peer pressure and to make some decisions that they really didn't think through. And so I think it's really harsh when people try to say, well, when a young person does something at the age of 16 and, that there's no hope or there's nothing else that can happen, that young person probably made a decision like many of us when we were young. You make decisions that you don't think through things all the way. And you certainly, when you get to a certain age, you realize, you know what, that probably was foolish, but I'd do better now. So one of the things that we want to see happen when we think about Cook County Justice for Children is we want more opportunities for young people to get to that point where we can say, you know what, even if there were a few mistakes made here, let's help them get to adulthood, because chances are they're not going to make those same kinds of mistakes anymore.
I feel like that's what young kids are struggling with today with, is peer pressure, trying to be involved with the wrong crowd. Cause my dad tells me every day, like, you don't go to school for other kids, or you're not out here for other kids. You out here for yourself, to make sure you strive, make sure you get a good education. Because without an education, you're basically nothing. And I feel like a few of the kids who do good, they listen to their parents, but those who do bad, I feel like they don't have that necessary strength, they don't have that necessary focus. They don't understand that education is what we need. Anyway, we have a online caller. Any questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Can you please state your comment, please?
Yes. Are you all aware that it's in the House that young people under the age of 18 can get their record expunged if it's not a violent crime?
So there are different laws regarding expungement, including juvenile expungement. One of the things, though, that is clear is that it is not as simple to get your record expunged as some people might think. And
well,
so
it's a new law that you need to call the state representative. It's a new law that they're putting out, that the record will automatically be expunged at the age of a juvenile. It's a new record to call your legislator, the state representative, because I was at a meeting when they were discussing it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that information. I do want to say that one of the things that we're hoping happens is that young people are aware of options that are available to them for expungement, because a lot of times young people might have some contact with law enforcement, or maybe there was some sort of incident at school and they didn't realize that it got to the point of being an arrest, and they don't find out until much later in their lives that there was something that had happened that really was on their record. So first of all, the term expungement is not always clear to people, so we need more education about what expungement what it means. And then we have to make sure that young people have the necessary information about how to get their records expunged if that needs to happen. And as the caller indicated, one of the things that's really important is staying on top of what happens with state legislation and making sure that you're voicing your opinions to your representatives about what you'd like to see happen in the area of juvenile justice.
We'd like to thank the caller for calling in for a question or comment. Thank you very much. Now back to the questions. Why is it important to keep our youth out of prison?
Well, I think it goes back to what we just talked about, that there are young people, first of all, that have experienced a great deal in their own lives in terms of trauma, experienced some life events that have been very harsh. Maybe they've experienced violence, maybe they've seen violence in their homes, maybe they've seen violence in their communities. And oftentimes when you've experienced violence, then that's the same kind of thing that can cause someone to commit certain acts, or at least be in a situation where they're at greater risk of committing certain acts, or at least being accused of committing certain acts. And so one of the things that's important to realize is that by locking a young person up, that is another form of trauma. It is harmful. It's harmful for young people to be in those conditions of confinement. If a young person has been charged with something that is nonviolent, and that they are locked up with people who have been charged with violent crimes, that all that does is expose them to more of those same types of activities. So when we think about what we are hoping to do, and one of the things that we just have been discussing lately with a report that has been recently released by Cook County Justice for Children in conjunction with Adler University and Roosevelt University, is how can we do more to keep young people engaged in their community? Because locking young people up is not something that's going to help them in their future, but helping them to come back to their community, re-engage, reconnect with their community, reconnect with their families, keeping them in school. Those are the kinds of things that are going to give them more successful outcomes for their future.
So being that the case, how can you go through finding out what's on your record?
Well, you can search, depending on if you have had a case, first of all. If you're concerned about whether or not there's some case, then you'd have to get a rap sheet from the Chicago Police Department to be able to look to see what's on your record.
So then, once you go through that process, what is the process of getting your record expunged, like getting the slate cleaned?
Well, as I said before, there are different laws, so I don't want to give sort of a blanket statement, because sometimes it applies, sometimes it doesn't. You will find that there are several different sources. One that I want to mention, because I was really proud of the young people that I worked with who created what's called the Expungio app. And it's expunge.io, and you can find that it's a web-based app. You can find it online. And it was developed by a group of young people that I worked with when I was working with Cook County, the MICVA Challenge Cook County Juvenile Justice Advisory Council. All young people who were looking for solutions to help young people who were court involved. And what they did is they developed a web-based app that takes you from step point A to point B to point C, all the way to getting you to the point of connecting with a lawyer who can help you with your expungement process. So that's just one resource that is available for young people. Right now they have ads on the Chicago Transit Authority buses, and as of this week. And so there's a lot of information out there about how you can go about getting your record expunged.
So does the Cook County Justice for Children offer any expungement programs?
No, we're not an organization that focuses on expungement. We work on policy development, we work on advocacy, and we work on research to help really focus the efforts of the Cook County Juvenile Court. But as I mentioned, there are other resources such as Cabrini Green Legal Aid, or CGLA, the Expungio app, and a number of other resources that can help young people with the expungement process.
So do you think incarceration or having more prisons profit local communities?
Well, I would probably answer that question by asking what someone would consider profiting a community. So on one hand, there are some people who in the past have really, quite frankly, protested closing down facilities because that is a source of jobs in the community, and they might see that as a form of profit. But I think that the way that I like to look at it is that when you lock up young people and they come out and they've been disconnected from school and they've been disconnected from their community, they've been disconnected from their family, then what does it profit the community for them to come back after having been locked up and really not feeling that they have a lot of opportunities? The best way for a community to prosper and to grow and to thrive is to have young people that have opportunities for jobs, opportunities for a good education, opportunities to feel safe. And that's not what happens when you lock young people up. So I think that we really need to shift our thinking about what does it mean for a community to really be prosperous or to profit. I don't think it's from locking young people up and making money off of that. I think it really comes from investing in our young people so that they can then in turn invest in the community.
A big part of your mission is to raise public awareness and understanding of the court system. Why is this important in today's society?
Well, it's important to raise awareness about what's happening with the juvenile justice system because people don't understand what's happening with the juvenile justice system. So right now at the Cook County Juvenile Temporary Detention Center, there's approximately 360 young people that are being detained. And I'm not sure if the average resident of Cook County understands, first of all, who's being detained. One statistic that might be of interest that people often don't know is that about 98% of the youth that are locked up in our detention center are youth of color. And so that's really interesting because when you look at the number of youth of color in our county, it's not 98% youth of color. So we should be asking questions about and educating ourselves and making the public aware about why is there such disproportionate minority confinement at our detention center. A second reason why it's really important, not only do we not always know who's being detained, but we also don't realize how much money is being spent on detaining young people. At our detention center right now, we're paying almost $600 a day to detain a young person. And I believe, and I can't do the math right off the top of my head, but I believe that's somewhere around $52,000 a year to keep a young person detained. Well, all of us know that that's the same amount of money that you talked to me earlier about how you're on your way to college soon, right?
Right.
Well, that's what college tuition looks like. And so as taxpayers, as residents of this county, we should be asking ourselves, is it best to invest that much money into detaining a young person, or does it make more sense in spending that kind of money to educate a young person? And then I think finally, the other reason why it's important to make the public aware of our juvenile justice system is because we all know young people who have contact with the system. I can speak personally that I've known young people who have had contact with the police. I know young people who have experienced violence. I know young people who have been victims of crime. I know young people who have gone through the court system. And it's important for us to understand how that works as community members, but it's also important for parents to understand how that system works, and it's important for young people to understand how the system works, because you don't know what kind of situation you may find yourself in, and if you do end up being involved or, for example, being arrested. I did a workshop recently for some young people at a high school about some of the things you need to know if you come in contact with police. And it's incredible how many young people in that room had had contact with the police but weren't really sure of their rights. So that's why it's important. We have to educate the public on what their rights are, but also what to expect in the event that they have some contact with the justice system.
52,000. That's more than my soon-to-be college tuition. That's only 41,000. Dang. Anyway, we have a caller online. Caller, what is your question or comment?
Hello.
Hello. How you doing today?
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
I want to know if you could touch base why what she just said. It's a lot of racial profile going on with the system that you're saying. To me, I think it's a lot still going on about hate for us with our color, for us with the police system. So can you touch bases on that as far as racial profiling, what's going on with the police system?
So if I think I understood your question correctly, you were asking about some of the some of the disparities that I talked about within the system. So both in the juvenile system as well as in the adult system, we do see the same sort of racial disparities. And that's across the country, quite frankly. And it's at every point in the system. So it's not just, by the way, from the point of arrest, it's at the point of detention, it's at the point of those that get sent to prison. At every level, we will see higher rates of black and brown individuals being a part of the system. But I think what's really important when we talk about juvenile justice is that we also have to look at the school system. And I know that, we often want to start by looking at what happens with police or with the criminal justice system, but oftentimes the gateway, unfortunately, for many young people into the juvenile justice system comes through the schools. And some of you, of course, have heard of the term school to prison pipeline. So we have to look at every aspect of where we see disparities. We have to look at our school system and find out why there's racial and ethnic disparities in terms of suspensions or expulsions from school. And we have to look at the entire system and really ask ourselves the question, what is happening where you certainly see more youth of color being entangled into the system? And what are the resources that might be available in other communities? Because I think that's another question that we have to look at. If we were to look at rates of arrest and detention for young people, we could probably point to about 6 or 7 zip codes in the city of Chicago. Those would also be about the same 6 or 7 zip codes where you would also find high rates of poverty, issues with the schools, lots of things like that that really point to just general issues that show that the community is struggling or there's been a disinvestment in that community. And so when we think about that, we have to look at what are some of the challenges that are facing young people, first of all, just in the communities where they live, and what are the opportunities that can be presented to them, what resources exist there. Because when I talked about what's happening with young people and the disproportionality in the detention center, it kind of begs the question, we know that it's not only youth of color that might do something that is against the law. We know that we would see the same kind of behaviors where young people all across races and ethnicities. So what happens that only, at least what we see in the detention center, that it's youth of color? So what are the resources that are in other communities that they don't end up being detained? And that's something that needs to be studied further. And that's one of the things from our one of our recently released reports with Adler University and Roosevelt University, the need to really study and come up with some concrete solutions about disproportionate minority confinement.
So why do you think our justice system and prisons teams for non-violent crimes, instead of offering a communicative alternative, for example, providing with education?
I'm not sure if I would say that our system doesn't offer any alternatives to detention. In the work that I've done, and even in some of the conversations with our court system, with probation system, and other policymakers and attorneys that are working within the system, there are some opportunities for diversion. There are opportunities to say, depending on what the charge might be or depending on how many times a young person has been in the system, there are other alternatives. And there's been some investments in other alternatives to allow young people to stay connected to their communities. Right now, for example, there's a big push for restorative justice, community restorative justice hubs, which is an opportunity for young people to connect with individuals within their communities to make sure that they are not detained. So do we need to do more? Of course we do. But I do think that there are opportunities that people are pushing for to keep youth out of the system.
Well, we have 1 minute left to wrap up the show. Is there any other questions, like any other comments that you want to state to the audience?
I guess the only thing that I'd like to say is that you can find more information about Cook County Justice for Children on our website, which is www.cookcountyjustice.org. And we're hosting community cafes around the city right now. And if you're interested in such a cafe, you can sign up on our website.
Well, that is all we have for today. Today, my name is Jamira Rice, and you with Focus on Tomorrow. Focus on Tomorrow is a nonprofit organization located in Chicago, Illinois. You can find us on the web at www.focusontomorrow.org. My name is Jamira Rice, and we will see you next Tuesday.